Three things I wish I knew before I became a doctor. And these are not all good or bad things. In each one of these, there is a bright, positive part and there is a negative aspect to it. Probably the first thing I wish I knew was how emotionally taxing or intense being a primary care physician is overall. See, you have to imagine the emotional aspect of this work as 20 encounters per day on average with people who come to you to seek help, but not just for a cut or for an elevated blood pressure or blood sugar, but their very essence, their soul is bleeding, is hurting, is scared, is anxious, and they are looking for relief. And they cling on you sometimes. Sometimes they come across as confrontational, or it's hard for them to open to you. And yet, here you are, a mere human being, as vulnerable, as confused sometimes as they are, as powerless as they are, but you find yourself in this uncomfortable position, emotionally speaking, of trying to empower them, to relieve their stress and suffering. And it's not always easy. You know, it's very fulfilling when you manage to lift them up, to help them. But it's also very common among my colleagues to find yourself empty after a while, to find yourself in need of support and of help yourself. And you feel like, okay, I need a break. I no longer have any resources to put into this game, emotionally speaking. And this, my friend, is one of the reasons why many physicians come across as emotionally distant or cold. And people wonder, why did they go into medicine if they cannot empathize, if they cannot provide emotional support? Well, you have to understand that when they went into this, they didn't anticipate the cost properly. They didn't realize that there's a limit to how much they can offer. And unless and until we providers find a way, a reliable source of refilling our energies, emotionally speaking, we will fail in this respect. The positive side of this, though, once you anchor yourself emotionally, spiritually, properly, this becomes a blessing in disguise, because you can point people to the same source that you are drinking from. And in my case, as a Christian healthcare provider, it gives me great joy to be able to point people to our Creator, who's there to support us, to strengthen us. And you just have to tap into that every morning through your devotional time, in your meditation, in your prayer, and you will be refilled. Second thing, I did not anticipate the extremes of humanity that I have come to know since I've been a doctor. What do I mean by that? You know, going into medicine as a young person, as a teenager and young adult, I lived for a while with the impression that some of the deepest fears and concerns that I had were unique to myself, that nobody else had those issues. But it didn't take me long after I started seeing patients to realize that my experience was far from unique. Everybody that cared to share their deeper fears, their deeper, struggles, I could identify with that. Surely the details may differ, but at the bottom of it all, there was the same anxieties, the same thirst, the same need for fulfillment and meaning that I was experiencing. And then at the positive side of things, ever so often, I come across a patient or a family of patients who got it, who figure it out to where they find meaning. I can tell you many stories of such encounters that I had over the years with patients from this category. And this has been immensely helpful and fulfilling. These people have restored not just my faith in humanity, but my confidence that change is possible, that people can overcome obstacles, whether it's some sort of inborn or acquired difficulty. I had a patient with dyslexia who lived into becoming a centenarian, and every visit he would tell me stories or parts of the story of how he managed to overcome this disability and become a successful, not just a successful individual or husband, but a successful cattle rancher. And these things were immensely helpful to me. And what they did, they also allowed me, I believe, for the most part at least, to be able to get that 30,000 feet view of reality, where you manage to get yourself out of this, it's just me and my problems perspective, and understanding that we are all together in this. And then the third thing that I discovered was how common certain afflictions are. And the one that probably was the most shocking to me, and this goes back to what I said in the beginning, is anxiety and depression and related psychological or psychiatric issues. In my naivete, I expected that I would probably rarely encounter patients that struggle with depression and anxiety. But in fact, these issues make at least 10%, and in some days over 20% of my daily practice.